Well, everybody, we're here as promised with the first edition of the Story Time with the Tennessee Stud segment on the Jim Cornette Experience, and we're joined, of course, by the Tennessee Stud himself, Ron Fuller. Ron, it's great to have you back on the program.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Jim. Always a pleasure to be sitting in here or sitting or talking to you, man. You're one of my favorite people.
Well, and of course, you've just started the Studcast not long ago, and we've told the people that, you know, it's a great chance to hear stories going back to the dawn of wrestling, and your family with 90 years in the industry, and you went to your first match when you were 9 days old, etc. You know, you've got so many, whether it be the 80s in Continental or the 30s in the Great Depression or anything in between. But what have you picked out for us to talk about this week?
I want to talk about the Bahamas, man. When I broke in 1970, I started in Georgia, and about 3 months in, I went down to Tampa, got lucky enough to get into Tampa, and Tampa was running matches. My grandfather's brother, Lester Welch, was actually running the Bahamas, and I'd been to the Bahamas a couple of times as a kid. We went snorkeling and diving and things like that, but so I went over to wrestle, and I was not prepared for what I saw. My uncle Lester he's a funny guy. He's an odd guy, and he found this place that was called the Nassau Stadium. It was in Nassau in the Bahamas. We went there every other Saturday night. And the first time I ever went there, I went in. When we got to the stadium, it was about half the size of a football field. It had a wall about 8 feet high around the perimeter of it. The front of it, where you went in to buy a ticket, was in a pool hall. And you actually went, believe it or not, you had to go into the pool hall, and then you bought your ticket and you went out into the big main area. It was a bleachers on two sides, and the hardest ring I ever wrestled in my life. The first experience I had, and I got slammed. I rolled out on the floor, and I asked the referee, I said, "Come here." I said, "What in the hell is under that ring?" And he goes, "What do you mean, Ron?" I goes, I picked up the apron and I looked, and it was concrete blocks stacked one on top of another under the ring. So, and the ring was 24 by 24. It was so big, if you did a crisscross, you blew up if you crossed twice.
Oh, my God.
It was a monstrous ring, hard as a rock. So you bought a ticket, you go in through what's a pool hall. They have some ringside chairs, and then they had bleachers. Now, we're wrestling in the Bahamas, so not a lot of people there had money. And about 8 o'clock or 8:15, I look out there, and there's very few people in the arena. I'm like, geez, man, this is a pretty nasty looking crowd. Where is everybody? And I'm standing there watching, and all of a sudden, a guy comes flying over the wall. He lands almost on top of me. He lands on his face on the concrete. Bam! And he gets up, and he runs off into the crowd. And I'm like, what in the hell? And I look, and I see another guy come flying over the other end of the arena from the outside. And I climb up on the bleachers, and I look, and there's like 300 guys outside, and they're taking their hands and hooking them underneath the guy's feet. And they would catapult them over the wall to get in free, right? And they would land, sometimes they would land on people, sometimes they would land on the bleachers, sometimes they would land on their face. And then I noticed that the guy that's running the show with Lester, that runs the so-called Nassau Stadium, he's up front, and he comes out of the pool hall. He's got a cue stick. It's cut in half, and he has it filled with lead. I don't know it's filled with lead, but later on I ask him what's in it, and I see him come out of the front of the stadium, the little place where you come in and buy your tickets from, and I see somebody get shot over the wall right by him, takes a bump on his ass right in front of the guy, and he gets up and he starts to run off, and this guy cracks him upside the head with that cue stick. I mean, so hard, I could hear it. I'm at the far end of the complex. I'm like, whoa, gosh. And the guy didn't go down. He just ran sideways and then straightened back up and ran off into the crowd. I was like, now what in the hell is this all about? So this continued for the next 30 minutes. they threw probably 400 people over the wall in a period of 15 minutes. And now there's a pretty decent crowd in there, but none of them are paid.
That's fucking great. It's a hell of a house. It's just nobody paid to get it.
Nobody paid, right? So I'm like, geez, man, what kind of place is this? They had the dirtiest dressing rooms I've ever seen. It was 2 separate dressing rooms. And in the back, they had old mattresses, and they had tore the seams off of them, and the cotton was all hanging out. They had the doors open so that the fans, and they were from the Bahamas, so they didn't know how to act. They were just, hey, man, they're pushing right in the dressing room, man. What you doing, man? What's your name? Get out of here. What are you doing, man? So they're like out of control. The whole place is like pandemonium. It's all out of control. So first match, bell ring. And I can't remember who was in the match exactly, but I know that when they got to them, no heel had ever won a match there. And I didn't know this, I watched it and I saw, geez, man, they're not getting any heat. And one of the guys says, they'll kill him, Ron. If the heel wins, they'll kill him. I said, what do you mean they'll kill him? He said, I'm serious. There'll be a riot and they will kill him on his way to the dressing room. So I watched, then my dad was on that card, and he goes out and works with George Harris, Bunk Harris.
Old 2-ton.
There you go. Big old fat boy, 300-pounder, and he gets him up in the match. He slams him, and in that hard ring, I mean, you could see Bunk's belly shaking for like 2 minutes after he hit the mat. His belly's going up and down, and Dad and then Dad gets up, and he must have said to Bunk, must have said, slam me. So Bunk slammed him, and then he said, cover me. So Bunk gets down on him to pin him, and the referee is Stu Schwartz, great old referee in Florida days, and Stu gets down to count him out, and he goes 1 and 2, and Bunk jumps up. It gets off of him. He just bounces up on his feet, right? And Dad's laying there just like a dead frog. And Bunk screams real loud. The crowd's they're like, what the heck's going on here? Why did he get up? He could have won. And he screams, you're trying to get me killed. And so I couldn't figure
That's it. George Harris, every story he always used to tell when he wrestled was that he had to drive 500 miles one way to the show. It was sold out. He started a riot. He got so much heat. Somebody tried to knife him, and he got screwed on the payoff. That was every single night of George Harris's life.
Well, he got screwed on this payoff. I'm sure of that. There wasn't too much there to pay off on it after I saw what happened. All the people that got thrown over the wall and how easy it was to get in. So Dad does it to him again. He says, slam me again. And Bunk goes down on him again, and Dad just wraps his arms around him and holds him. And Stu's counting 1, 2, and then Stu quits counting. And I said to whoever standing next to me, I go, what in the hell are they doing? And Stu gets up and just turns around and walks to the ropes and stands in the corner like I ain't gonna do it. I'm not going to count him out. So I was like, geez, this is pretty dang screwy here. I've never seen anything like it. So the event goes down that way. At the end of the night, when the bell rings on the final bell of the night and the last match is over, it's a meteorite shower. There's there must be, I guess, probably 300 people still outside, and they pick up all these big coral rocks and they start tossing them over the wall into this arena, right? They got no roof on the building, right? So they start. So
it's just basically a big rectangular concrete wall around a big area.
That's it. A big concrete wall around a concrete bottom, concrete floor in it, and a few bleachers and some ringside. And the ringsiders, what was really got me the most is I'm standing watching it, and all these rocks start coming. So I back up into the dressing room where I can't get hit in the head by a rock, and And I see the ringsiders, they're used to it. They pick up their chairs and they hold them over their heads. And rocks are hitting on their chairs, the bottoms of the chairs. Bang, 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 bang. And it's lasts about 30 seconds. They run out of rocks and the meteorite shower's over. Everybody puts their chairs down and they go home. It's like, wow, I have never seen anything like this in my life. So we go and complain to Lester. And we'd say, Lester, this is crazy. You go, we're not getting very good payoffs, and half the crowd is getting in free, and something needs to be done about this situation of where they toss guys over the wall. And so he goes, I'm going to talk to the guy up here at the building here that runs the place. They're talking about the black guy with the cue stick that nailed him upside the head. I'm going to go talk to him, and he says, I'll see if I can do something about it next week. So 2 weeks later, we come back to Nassau. This time we come, and there's a Siegfried line across on this entire wall. It's like the old World War ones where you see those barbed wires wrapped in round rolls and all that.
Oh, like the prison camp.
There's like a prison camp. Yes, and he has mounted it on the top of the wall around the entire stadium, right? So that they can't pitch them into the stadium, right? They can't throw them over the wall now because the barbed wire's up there, right? So we're all celebrating. Me and the boys, we're saying, boy, he's got it figured out. This is great, man. We got it licked. We're going to get a decent payoff. They'll have to pay to get in. Well, about halfway through the night, I go out there and look, and I'll be damned if they have. What they did is instead of throwing them up, they eased them up so that they get their feet underneath the wire, and then they hooked their arms inside the wire, and they were shoulder to shoulder, standing all the way around the entire stadium. Must have been 500 guys standing on the top of the wall now watching for free. And when you wrestled there, what was really funny is the crowd made these noises like it was a Batman movie. When you threw a punch, the crowd would go, bis. Then they'd go, and it's like somebody held up a sign because they'd all do the same sound. They'd go, bis, boom, bah. It was like, and you'd be making a comeback, and I would stop in the middle of a comeback and look at the crowd like, what in the hell are y'all doing? And it was a strange darn place to work. So halfway through that night, they're all standing on the wall. And we are already talking to Lester. I said, look at this crap. Man, you got more out here and standing on the wall than got thrown over the wall. It's even worse, right? So about halfway through the night, somebody got a big comeback going in the ring, and they started that bis, boom, bah, and the guys on the wall are doing it too. And down on one far end, I saw a guy fall off backwards, right? When he fell off, he took all that wire with him. It looked like dominoes. They started at the far end of that stadium, and they went off backwards. Now their hands are hooked in the wire, and their feet's underneath the wire, and they just had to go straight off, 8-foot drop, straight onto their backs. And it went all the way around the wall. I watched them all the way, every single one of them. They were all there. 60 seconds later, they're all gone. And the dirt and the dust from outside from the big bump, we kind of floated up in the air. We was like, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable. I never seen anything like this. So it just went on and on. It was a constant battle between the fans trying to get in for free and Lester trying to figure out another way to get to them. So now they fall off the wall because the thing is broken. So 2 weeks later, we come back and we talk to him again. Lester, that didn't work. What are you going to do now? And he says, I'm working on it. I'll work on it. So we come back in 2 weeks. I walked into that stadium that night. I looked up at the wall. It gave me chill bumps. What they had done is they took glass bottles and broke the tops out of them and left the jagged edges sticking up, and they cemented them all along the top of the wall. So they couldn't throw them over. They couldn't lift them up there. I mean, it finished the wall, right? I mean, I looked at it. I said, that's it, man. I went to Lester. I said, gee, Lester, you have got it done now, man. I said, they ain't coming over, nor are they going to stand up there anymore. He goes, no, you'll never see anybody come over that wall anymore. So what happened is after that, they had a big oak tree on one side of the stadium, and on the far side, they had a big garage. Okay. So that night, that we all went out there. We're just really like, hell, and the crowd's up, right? We got more people bought a ticket. We're all happy. Say, hey, we're going to get a payoff tonight. This looks pretty good. And then we look over the wall on the far side where there's a big, huge oak tree, and that oak tree is full of guys. I mean, there must be 400 guys in this huge oak tree. And they're bish, boom, wow, they're doing their thing over there in the big oak tree. And so we're all like, what in the hell, man? And they're seeing over the wall. They got a great view, right? Now they've figured out another way to see it for free. So we go to Lester again. We say, Lester, what are we going to do with this oak tree, man? You got to do something. So he goes to the Bahama guy that's in the front. And he talks to the Bahama guy, and he says, what about we cut down that oak tree? And the Bahamian guy goes, oh, no, man. He says, that you can't cut down an oak tree in the Bahamas, man. That's against the law. He goes, we don't have a lot of big trees like that, and you can't cut it down. So Lester says, how about I cut it half down? So next week we come. And he tells us on the way over, we fly with him. He flies us in there. He's got a little plane, and half the crew flies in on his plane, half the crew flies in on a commercial. So I'm always on Lester's plane because I'm related to him. So, he thinks he's doing me a favor, but I'd rather fly commercial. But I fly over with him. So he tells us on the way over, he goes, I think I got the oak tree problem solved. And so we say, well, what? And he says, well, I can't cut it down, but I cut it half down. So we're like, oh, we get the idea. So that night, everybody that worked that night, they didn't want to work because you knew sometime during the night that big oak was going to go, right? And, and I remember that I was in the ring when it went. And what you got was you had. So
the people had climbed up. They didn't know it was half cut. They've climbed up.
Hell no, they didn't. I mean, he sawed it half down, and then they took all the little chippings and stuff from the saw, and they scraped it all up, and nobody knew the tree was half cut down, right? But we knew it was half cut down. So I went to the ring and I was like, the tree hadn't broke yet. I'm like halfway through the night, and the tree has got more guys in it than it had the week before. I don't know how many's in it. And hear the bish, boom, bah, they got it all going, right? And they hear this big, like the first big crack. And out of the tree, I'm in the middle of something. I just stopped. I stopped and turned right to the tree. That's all I want to see is this tree go. And it starts real slow. I mean, it goes, and it starts, and it's crack. And they start jumping. They know that it's going down, right? They're jumping out of the tree, and their bodies are just flying all different directions. And this monstrous big old oak, it's probably 200 feet high. It crashes down. I mean, gosh, it's just, I thought, oh God, 20 of them's got to be dead. 50 of them got to be dead, And so on the way out, I go to the guy that runs the stadium, the Bahamian, and I say, how many people got hurt in that tree? And he says, I don't know, man. He says, some of them got up mighty slow, though. So it was like working in a different place in the world. It was no place that I'd ever been before or since. It was like that atmosphere. And the people they kept throwing the rocks. The rocks never stopped. I remember one night there was somebody in the main event, and the baby face was in the ring, and the heel's in the ring. And they're about to ring the bell, and somebody throws this lone rock over the wall. It's the size of a basketball. It's a piece of coral, and coral is the hardest rock there are. And it hit him
and sharp too.
Oh gosh, horrible! It hit him in the head, the top of the head, and he was a masked guy. You can't remember who he was, but he was in the main event. The rock hit him right in the head. Like, couldn't have aimed it any better. He went down face first. They had already rang the bell, and bam, the rock hits him. He goes down face first. And the referee turns to the heel, and he says, "Cover him." And the heel goes, no. He's shaking his head. No, I'm not going to cover him. And the referee stands there and looks at him. He goes, "Cover him." He's talking louder. Every time he says it louder. He says, "Cover him." He goes, "No, cover him. No." And the heel gets out and walks to the dressing room. They count out the heel, and he reaches down and raises the baby face who's out cold's hand. He's won the match. It was like
we saw a couple crowds like that in South Louisiana a time or two, where he was like, "Get some heat." No, fuck. Jimmy Garvin one time couldn't even take Precious to the ring. They were assaulting her.
Oh God, that's just about as bad as the Bahamas. I've been in that Louisiana stuff, and that is really, really dangerous over there. So they went on, did this. This went on. They threw the rocks. They did all this. They continued with the same process. And finally, Dusty Rhodes and Dick Murdoch, they were working there quite regularly with me and other guys. And they said, they talked to me about, they said, "Let's kill this town." And I said, "What do you mean kill it?" And he go, "Don't worry, kid," because I was really young, you know. They said, "Don't worry, kid. We're going to do it. We're going to kill this town tonight." And I said, "Well, no, hell, you think that's a good idea? You know, I come from a family that tries to make towns, right? Not kill them, right? You know." So in the middle of the match, and this Stu Schwartz referee,
I can see Dickie Murdoch telling you, "Don't worry, you ain't never going to have to come back to this town, kid."
Oh, you can see those two guys. You know those two guys. They're and when they were a team together, they were something else. I mean, they had a great time every night. They loved what they did, and they enjoyed everything. So in this match, we're in the main event. It's me and Danny Miller against Dusty and Dick Murdoch, and Stu Schwartz is the referee. And we get down to the end of the match, and Danny gets some heat, and he gives me a hot tag. So I go in and I start to make a comeback, and Dusty takes a bump, and he gets up, and he backs away from me, and he gets like a handlebars. He reaches like he's going to get on a motorcycle. He reaches out like and he throws his leg over the seat, and he pantomimes the whole deal, and he sits down, and he starts shaking his body like, and he starts going, and he starts running around in a circle around me on the outside of the ring. Now, I'm young and green, and I don't know what to do. What do I do to this, right? So I stand there like a dummy, and he runs around me about 4 times, makes the circle, and then he goes, put, and then he falls on his back and takes a bump. And I'm looking at him like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" And Dick Murdoch screams at me. He says, "Hey, stupid." He goes, "He's run out of gas. Cover him."
Oh, and did you?
I cover him. What the hell am I supposed to do? I look at Stu, and Stu's shaking his head like, "I don't know." He says, "Cover him." So I cover him. He counts out 1, 2, 3. And then Dusty jumps up on his feet. Him and Dick go to the dressing room, and I'm like struggling with this. My God, what is this all about? They start to leave for the dressing room, and that meteorite shower comes. People outside hear the bell ring. Right? And they start throwing the rocks, and the rocks are landing in the ring all around me, and I'm still dumbfounded by the whole deal. And there, all of a sudden, I look around, and I'm the only one there. And I feel an arm reaches up and grabs me by the ankle. And I look down there, and Murdoch sticks his head. He's underneath the ring. He sticks his head out from under the ring, and he goes, "Down here, stupid." You know, like, we're under the damn ring. You're going to get killed up there, right? So I climb underneath the ring. We wait till the meteorite's over, shower's over, boom, boom, all the rocks are full. The ring's all full. The ringsiders put their chairs down, and we go to the dressing room. That was the last show they ever ran
I can kill that town with one match. Kill that town.
Kill it with one match. And they did.
Oh, my God.